Hello again, and welcome back to this week's discipleship moment. And please engage in the conversation with us. Give us your feedback, testimonies, even your questions. We would love to hear from you. We are talking this month about intercessory prayer. When it comes to intercessory prayer, or praying for the mercy and the power of God to intervene in the lives of others, we have to understand that in intercession, we often wrestle against dark powers that have sway over people. These powers affect people's mindsets and their behaviors. In 2 Corinthians 4, verse 4, it says, "The God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ." 2 Corinthians 10, verse 4 and 5 talks about strongholds and arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. Ephesians 2, verse 2 talks about how we used to follow the ways of the world and the ruler of the kingdom of the air and the spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. So sometimes people don't respond to the gospel, or they don't seek after God because spiritual powers are at work against them. And that's where intercession comes in. In intercession, you confront the powers of darkness and compel them to let their prisoners go. And an example of this is in the book of Exodus, where God was proclaiming to the people of Israel that he was going to deliver them from Egypt. This was good news. It was a great promise from God. But listen to how the people responded in Exodus chapter 6, verse 9 through 11. "Moses spoke thus to the people of Israel, but they did not listen to Moses, because of their broken spirit and harsh slavery. So the Lord said to Moses, 'Go in and tell Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to let the people of Israel go out of his land.'" So the Israelites couldn't even hear Moses because of their bondage, until one translation says that they were so beaten down in their spirit by the harsh conditions of their slavery. Another power had blocked their ability to hear the gospel. Another power was hindering their ability to respond to God and what God was doing. They didn't outright reject the gospel. It was not a simple, stubborn resistance against God. They literally couldn't even hear the truth that would have set them free. They were greatly weakened in their capacity to say yes to God, and they had no power to walk out of slavery on their own. They were in bondage, and it affected their spirit. And it left them with no hope, no faith, no power to change their situation. So God needed someone else to intercede for the people. Because a people who can't fight need someone to fight for them. A people who can't pray need someone to pray for them. Or won't pray, they need somebody to pray for them. A people who can't believe need someone else to believe for them. And so God needs someone on the ground to confront the powers that hold so many people in bondage. So God told Moses to turn his attention not to the people, but to Pharaoh. Pharaoh was the power that kept Israel enslaved. Pharaoh was the one that blinded their eyes and covered their ears so they could not respond to God. Pharaoh would never let Israel go until someone under the authority of the Lord coerced him to let the people go. So God told Moses, confront Pharaoh. God wanted an intercessor, and he wants intercessors who will confront the powers of darkness that hold people in darkness and keep them in bondage and hinder them from responding and receiving the gospel of Jesus Christ. Believers have the authority to wrestle down the forces of the enemy for the sake of souls. Some people will not see the light until someone else faces off against the Pharaoh that is influencing their heart. Some evils won't be defeated until God's representatives pull down Pharaoh's stronghold. Cities won't be won. Nations won't return to God until we prevail over the Pharaoh that controls them. So whoever you're praying for, ask God to remove the power of Pharaoh, the powers of darkness that have been hindering them. And know that in Jesus' name you'll overcome.